And also on today's show, I'll be joined in the studio by a Westminster Tory councillor who's defected to Reform. And she quit the Conservatives because, quote, she is tired of defending failure. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, the show is a pleasure to have your company. Do you get the feeling that this government is addicted to spending, yet it simply cannot be told to rein back on the spending? Without wish of sounding sexist, are they a bit like a wife, addicted to shopping, who threatens to leave you if you block one of their credit cards? Seriously, billions and billions and billions of pounds are being given away to the Chagos Islands. 5% to defence, union pay rises. Every single time we need to save money, be it the winter fuel allowance or now benefits cuts, the party threatens to rebel, and sure as night follows day, Sir Keir Starmer seems to fold like a cheap suit. Another U-turn. What message does that send out to everybody else who'll be kicking back over the years? And incredibly, 51 Labour MPs have wafer-thin margins far lower than the number of people in their constituencies who would lose their benefits. Are they simply putting self-survival first, sensing that only 1 year in, less than 1 year in, this Labour Party could already be a sinking ship? Get in touch with your views, and apologies for that sexist comment there, but hey, it's the Martin Daubney Show. Get in touch. GBNews.com/your say. Now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. Just after 3 o'clock, the top story: the NATO alliance is more lethal than ever. That is how the Prime Minister has described it after world leaders committed to boosting defence spending. Sir Keir Starmer says the UK will spend 5% of GDP on national security by 2035 and rebuild Britain's nuclear deterrent. He told MPs today the plan will create 20,000 new jobs and secure Britain's place on the global stage. The pledge follows new warnings about threats from Russia, China and Iran. Well, here's what the Prime Minister told the Commons earlier today.
It has kept this country safe for decades, but we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing. So we are renewing our existing at-sea capability, and we are going still further. I can tell the House today that we will procure at least 12 F-35A fast jets, and we will make them available to bear nuclear weapons if necessary. Mr. Speaker, this marks the return of the Royal Air Force to nuclear deterrence for the first time in 3 decades, the biggest strengthening of our deterrence posture in a generation, keeping our country safe while also supporting 20,000 jobs.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump says NATO's new pledge to spend 5% of GDP on defence is a big win for Western civilization. Earlier, his Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth praised the move and called it a major success for the US president.
What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security. That other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal.
Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed the government is now in talks with Labour rebels over possible welfare concessions ahead of a key vote on Tuesday. 126 Labour MPs are now backing an amendment to block the bill, which includes cuts to disability benefits and universal credit changes. The Prime Minister told MPs the goal is reform with Labour values and fairness, but warned the process will be tough going. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is involved in the talks as pressure mounts to soften the £5 billion in cuts. The government still insists, though, the vote will go ahead as planned next week. 3 people have been taken to hospital after a double-decker bus carrying sixth form students crashed into a river in Hampshire. The bus was transporting pupils from Barton Perivale Sixth Form College when it left the road earlier today. 14 others were treated at the scene, with police confirming all passengers have now been accounted for. 3 of those injured are being treated as high-priority cases. We have heard the latest from the emergency services at the scene, saying 3 people, as I say, have now been taken to hospital. Major porn sites will introduce strict age checks for UK users from the 25th of July. It's part of a new Ofcom rule aiming to stop children accessing harmful content online. The robust age verification will include methods like credit card checks, open banking or facial age estimation. It's the first time these measures have been enforced in the UK. Ofcom says protecting young users is a top priority. And the next James Bond film director has been found, and it is a big name. Canadian filmmaker Denis Villeneuve will take the helm, calling it the role of a massive responsibility and saying he's been a die-hard Bond fan since childhood. He is, of course, best known for directing Dune and Blade Runner 2049 and is a 4-time Oscar nominee. Those are the latest headlines for now. Let's take a look next at the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
So here's how the markets are shaping up for you just after 3 o'clock. The pound will buy you $1.3704 and €1.1716. The price of gold is £2,427.85 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,747 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, another day and yet another Labour U-turn as the Prime Minister this time looks set to water down his welfare reform plans in a scramble to avoid what would be his first major Commons defeat of his premiership. Now, with more than 120 Labour MPs backing a rebel amendment, pressure is now mounting inside Downing Street to rethink key disability benefit cuts and delay Tuesday's crunch vote. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews reporter Adam Cherry, and also delighted to be joined by the Shadow Minister for Work and Pensions, Danny Kruger. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Let's start with you, if I could, Adam Cherry. A lot of people will be saying every single time there's a slight hint of having to cut back on money, there's a Labour rebellion. We've seen it with the winter fuel allowance. That was only £1.5 billion. £5 billion here from a behemoth budget of £100 billion and rising, and yet they're digging in. Does it send out the message this government is addicted to spending? But when there's any hint of a savings cut, they simply rebel.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, Martin? I said the original sin here was the winter fuel allowance U-turn, not the decision to cut it itself, although that was obviously politically damaging. But within the parliamentary party, as soon as they U-turned, they exposed themselves and revealed that they would back down if there was enough pressure. Now, you've been saying in your intro, and I've been saying similarly today, you know, they have a massive majority in the Commons, but it's a very shallow one. It's what happens when you win on 30-odd% of the vote. They all sit on very small majorities, many of these MPs, and they're now more worried about losing their seat than they are being disciplined and towing the party line. And you're seeing that here. And I don't think this is, when I say it's not recoverable, what I mean is I don't see how they build back that discipline anytime soon. I think this will keep happening. Now they've shown their belly, so to speak, this is a real problem for them. His authority as his ability, Starmer, to get his legislative agenda through is draining very, very quickly.
And are we seeing here two Labour parties cheek by jowl, as we saw in many ways with the Conservatives over Brexit? You've got Morgan McSweeney, the head of staff. Many say he's actually the de facto Prime Minister, perhaps uncharitably, who realises, I think, that they have to make savings. They just simply have to balance the books somehow. And yet when that's put forward, the more left-wing, the rump of the party or the self-survivalists, as you say, they simply won't listen to that. And now they're saying there needs to be regime change. Get rid of Morgan McSweeney rather than actually making any savings. It's astonishing.
It is astonishing, but I suppose to play devil's advocate and say you are one of these MPs who's opposing all these cuts, you would say, yeah, but I didn't stand on a manifesto that promised any of this. It's all been an ambush. As for Morgan McSweeney, what's really interesting is at the press briefing today with the Number 10 spokesman, somebody asked, one of the journalists asked, do you have full confidence in Morgan McSweeney as Chief of Staff? And the spokesman said, you wouldn't expect us to comment on Number 10 staff appointments with the Prime Minister's focus on the job. That's not verbatim, but essentially that's what he said. That's really interesting, because I think even when they were in the sort of dog days of the Sue Gray era, when, you know, we're old enough to remember that 6 months ago, they still insisted that they had confidence in her right up until they didn't. But already they seem to be equivocating. OK,
Danny Kruger, let's bring you in at this point. So it's calamitous. It's less than a year in. This was meant to be, you know, a landslide majority, and now we're seeing the cracks emerge. But I'm very curious to know what the Conservative Party's stance on this is going to be. Obviously, you know that benefits has to be cut back, but are you going to go for instead the option of voting against Keir Starmer to try and force him into what will be a huge defeat?
Well, we want to support welfare reform, and that means cuts. I mean, we had a plan before the election to reduce the welfare bill by £12 billion a year. This is much smaller than that, and it's in the context of £100 billion on disability benefits alone at the end of this Parliament, which, of course, is twice the defence budget. So it's absolutely unsustainable, our spending on disability benefits. But you can't just cut at the edges. You've got to reform the system properly. And this reform, this bill that they're putting forward is just about this cuts. So we would like to be able to support what the Prime Minister is trying to do, which is to bring down the spending, but you've got to do it in a way that genuinely works. And we don't think that this bill on its own at the moment will work. So we've set out conditions to ensure our support, which would be genuine reductions in the overall spending, which we're not getting at the moment, real support for people on benefits to get into work, again, which isn't happening. In fact, they're destroying jobs with all of their tax rises and their employment rights bill. And we want to see no new tax rises. So we've set out these are our conditions for supporting Labour. We can get them out of the hole they're in, that we can rescue Keir Starmer's benefits bill if he accepts our conditions.
Reading between the lines, what that most likely means is they won't accept your help. You want to go tougher on benefits. I think many people watching the show would agree. I mean, there seems to be a feeling that the system is being gamed. A lot of people are taking the mickey. Let's be frank, that's what people watching this show believe. And so you can say it doesn't go far enough, therefore you vote it down, and that would precipitate what could be a humiliating defeat
as you
for
say,
Keir Starmer.
It's an amazing thing that, you know, a year after a landslide victory, it shows that wasn't a real victory for Keir Starmer. You know, he won because we lost, and he doesn't have genuine support in the country, and all of those MPs who came in on that wave of change a year ago are not really committed to Starmer. Also, it shows, I think, that there's, you know, what is Starmer? What does this Labour Party actually stand for? You've got a complete split. You saw it last week with the assisted dying debate as well. You've got people who actually care about the vulnerable, and you've got, you know, Starmer doesn't seem to have any ideas of his own at all, and he's just doing what the Treasury is asking. I mean, that's what this is about. The Treasury has recognised, because of the budget fiasco from Rachel Reeves last year, they've got to make savings. And they've just looked at welfare and seen there's huge amounts of money going on that. Right, let's have some cuts there. But it's not real reform.
Now, many people could counter to that, of course, Danny Kruger. Well, you had 14 years to grapple with benefits. You had 14 years to control borders. You had 14 years to do many things that weren't achieved. So why should the electorate put faith in the Conservative Party now?
I'm not going to defend us on borders. I'm just going to put my hands up and say, absolutely, we failed there, especially in the end of the time in office. But actually on welfare, I think we have a good record. There was a huge problem of unemployment benefits when we came in. We reduced that over time, got a lot of people into work. What happened, and particularly around COVID, is that people went into the sickness benefit category, which is much harder to manage, especially with the mental health problem. And a lot of this is about mental health, which, again, is an area that Labour aren't looking at properly. We could make real savings if we support people who have mental health conditions, put more money into mental health support, cut your entitlements to quite generous benefits if you have anxiety or depression. Really what you need is help rather than just money. So we can make real reforms there. And I recognise not enough was done. But at the end of the last Parliament, we were getting on top of the COVID benefits problem, and Labour have undone it all. Do
need to be much more robust. Let's be honest. The bill for PIP ballooned from 12 billion in 2019 to 21 billion today. It's an astonishing increase in just 6 years. Are there people simply milking the system, gaming the system? And, you know, a lot of people, perhaps it's an uncharitable thing to say, of course, people do have genuine mental health conditions. Yeah. People have genuine bad backs. But are people, because they don't get seen face to face, they feel things out online, are they taking the mickey? And actually, is a root and branch change required to weed these people out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you put that quite well. The fact is there's a genuine rise in distress in the population. We all see it around us, and there's lots of interesting reasons for that. But the incentives in the system are, at the moment, is if you can persuade an assessor, usually over the phone, that you have a mental health condition, you can double your benefits. You know, and that sends such a strong message to people that that's the rational thing to do. So, yes, there are some people deliberately, cynically gaming the system, and you've got influencers on TikTok telling you how to do it. So there's a real kind of fraud problem. But I think there's a bigger problem, which is culturally we've decided that it's OK to live your life on benefits and to claim disability. We have 1 in 4 adults who self-identify as disabled at the moment. Many of those genuinely need support. We must really be compassionate to most of them. But, you know, for many of those people, what they would benefit most from is work and the expectation that, yeah, you can contribute. You've got a role to play in this society. We're not going to consign you to sit on your sofa for the rest of your life. So I think we need to be tougher, but we need to be more deliberate. And we need to change the culture so there is an expectation that you work. Otherwise, we're just going to carry on with the benefits bill. We're going to carry on with sucking in migration to fill our labour shortages. And our society will continue to deteriorate. So this is a massive moral mission, I think, for government. I'm afraid we're not seeing that from Labour. This is just a Treasury-driven drive to save a few pennies off the benefits bill. We need a proper reform programme, like Ian Duncan-Smith did 10 years ago when we were in government, really getting to grips with the system. We fixed the unemployment benefits problem. We now have this disability benefits problem, and we need to reform that.
Danny, I just want to ask about the overall direction of travel for your party. Obviously, there's a YouGov MRP poll today showing you down to, 40-odd seats? Now, I suppose you would say you've got time to rebuild, you've got 4 years. But actually, have you really? Because you've got locals next year, you've got Scotland and Wales. If you get decimated there in the way that you might based on this polling, does that not just signal terminal decline? Do you need to go much faster?
Well, listen, we are speeding up. I think we took the right decision, which was, you know, the country was sick of us. They rejected us for, frankly, good reason. And what is needed, rather than, I'm afraid, than the reform strategy, which is a lot of, you know, attractive-sounding principles and sound bites, what is really needed, if we're serious, is proper reform, genuine reform. And that means putting the work in to make a plan for change. And that's what's going on. And we've been doing that on the welfare agenda as an example. I think we're going to see over the coming months, and particularly around party conference in October, the beginnings of a proper plan. And I think the country is really ready for that. They want to see a reform programme that is serious, that will get to grips with the really difficult, entrenched problems that our country faces. And I think only the Conservatives can do that.
OK, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today. Danny Kruger, of course, the Shadow Minister for Work and Pensions, and, of course, Adam Cherry. Excellent start to the show. Thank you, gentlemen. It's time now for the Great British Giveaway. No, it's not a benefits giveaway. It is the Great British Giveaway from GB News. Your chance to win £54,321, our biggest cash prize to date, and it's all totally tax-free. And here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life. Somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up next, we'll be speaking to a London-based councillor from the Conservative Party who's defected from the Tories to reform. Why did she do that? She'll tell me next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome back. It's 3:24. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a major new YouGov poll released today shows that if a general election were to happen tomorrow, then Labour would win less than half of the seats they won last year, with Reform being the largest party by some margin. And it begs the question, once again, could Nigel Farage become Britain's next Prime Minister? But I'm still joined in the studio by GB News reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, second poll in 2 days, putting Reform Party by a clear margin out in front. This one's a bit tighter. Talk us through the numbers.
Yeah, 271 seats for Reform, and then I think Labour are down at 170...
178 for Labour.
178, and then it's around 40 for the Conservatives.
46 for the Conservatives, so major slips.
Yeah, right. So the interesting thing about that is, even if you have some sort of right-wing pact, whether it's a confidence and supply or even a coalition, it's still a minority. You don't get a full majority in the Commons with those numbers. Now, you've already seen what it's like, even if you have a majority, albeit on a small vote share, currently. So can you imagine... Look, this is one poll, all the usual caveats, 4 years to go. But if that bears out, and you have that makeup in the Commons, total dysfunction, total chaos. There'd be another general election very shortly afterwards, I think.
And yet, a poll out yesterday, a PLMR poll by electoral calculus, showed Reform on 377 seats, Labour collapsing to 118, the Conservatives almost disappearing on 29. The trend seems to be Reform are in the front in all of the polls, and that seems to be a growing margin. But the margin of victory is up for grabs. But another thing I think is going to be a huge story at the next election, as we saw with Brexit, as we saw with other elections like Donald Trump v1, is the sheer unpredictability and the volatility of the electorate. And do you think, Adam Cho, that something else is happening here, and that is a total rejection of the big parties, and it could be anarchy?
I suppose that will be Reform's pitch, isn't it? It's that, well, these two parties, these clunky old parties, are known variables, right? You know, by the time we get to that election, Labour will have been in power for 5 years. They have a record. The Tories, of course, have a record of 14 years, and they were booted out for it. So I would imagine you'll see Starmer become a Stop Farage candidate and say that regardless of the early turbulence, you don't want that man in number 10, and I am the force for stopping him. You know, maybe that appeals to Lib Dems and other small left parties as well.
And we're seeing the Conservatives already basically talking about the fantasy economics. They're going to be chipping away at the believability, the plausibility, the lack of track record. But I put it to you again, Adam Cherry, as we saw with Brexit, despite all the Project Fear, we had plagues of locusts coming over the channel, £4,000 hikes on your mortgage, we'd all be unemployed, the sea would rise and sweep us all away, you name it. I'm being facetious, but you get the point. It didn't work because, and I remember this at the time when I was travelling through the Red Wall back in 2015 and all the build-up, the years before Brexit, people were saying the status quo is broken, the country isn't working for us, we simply want change. And do you know what? It could be a big gamble, but right now, life isn't great for me, and they just want to change. Is that the energy, or when push comes to shove, will people say the gamble is simply too great, we can't roll the dice?
Well, again, I know it's sort of a truism to say this, but because there is so much space between now and then, maybe that pitch is more compelling in 4 years. Maybe Reform have more stumbles. I mean, you know, let's face it, Zia Yusuf resigned and then came back 48 hours later. Rupert Lowe lost the whip. Right, so there's more that could come. They could destabilise. And at that point, that pitch is as I say, more compelling for those who are opposed to a Farage premiership. But again, look, there's just so much time in between now and then. Yeah, all the usual caveats. Like I said, it's one poll. But the trends are interesting, you're right. And by the way, the biggest trend here is that the Conservatives, whichever way you look, are either in third or sometimes even fourth place at this point.
It's interesting. We're going to be covering another story in a short while. It's this incredible poll today about deporting foreign criminals, paedophiles, rapists. And what really struck me about that is that this is no longer a right-wing position. 80% of Liberal Democrats agree with this. 79% of Labour voters agree. OK, I'm afraid now we're going to cross to Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch now is giving a speech about economic growth.
Thomas, again. When I spoke here last year during the election, I talked about the choice between two competing visions for economic growth. One of them was that government knows best, and the other that business knows best how to create growth. My vision, the Conservative vision, is that it is not government that creates growth, it is business. But you will all know that we lost that election. And there were many reasons for that loss. But one of those reasons was that we were no longer trusted. It's quite clear that we got enough things wrong during our time in government that people wanted change. And we got that change. I was very surprised. Actually, I wasn't that surprised. I wasn't that surprised when I heard the Prime Minister speaking to you this morning. He spent a lot of time criticising the previous government. That is what politicians do. So now that I'm here, I'd like us instead to take a long, hard look at the country after 12 months of Labour in office. Since July, we've had inflation higher, unemployment up, growth halved. I mean, this is change, but it is change for the worse. And it didn't have to happen. Let's start with the jobs tax. That rise in national insurance is killing jobs. It is making it impossible for businesses to grow. And then we see that family businesses, which form the backbone of many of our communities, have been hit with increased taxes. More of the next generation will have no alternative but to close rather than continue running their family firms. Family Business UK warned this could lead to over 125,000 job losses. That is a lot. And instead, we've created 27 new quangos that are also creating more bureaucracy and more paperwork for businesses. But this isn't just about statistics and statements and government changes. This matters because it is about real people. It is people and businesses who are hurting when government is making wrong decisions. The company that never takes on more staff because it's just too difficult. The person who doesn't get the opportunity to buy their own house because they don't make enough money. Or the apprentice who never gets the right start in life because the government didn't get its act together. And we can't let that happen. So today I want to talk about our economic crisis, but also how to fix it with jobs, jobs, jobs for all of those people and businesses who are affected. And I want to talk about how we answer a fundamental question about what our country is for. A question which this government should be answering, but has failed to do. A question which we won't be able to duck forever, none of us here. And that question is whether we are for the makers or for the takers. Whether we are for those who work hard, who get on, who build businesses, who make things happen, whether it's a plumber or a nurse, or those who don't. And I know whose side I'm on. But let me first talk about the biggest political issue of this week, welfare. Our debt interest is well over £100 billion a year. Welfare spending is out of control. The state is bloated, productivity has flatlined, and the economy is stuck in first gear. Our country is living beyond its means. We are spending more than we're earning, and it means the cost of living crisis for working people is getting worse and worse. We need a totally different approach, one that ensures that things are easier for the makers, the people who work hard, create wealth and jobs, and deliver frontline public services, because currently this country has too many people who are taking, whether it is those who sit at home with the curtains drawn while others go out to work, or those who skip the queue and arrive here illegally only to be given privileged access to social housing, the NHS, and our generous welfare system. Yet, despite having a supermajority in Parliament, the Prime Minister is in the fight of his life. He is trying to save some of the government's welfare changes, changes that don't even cut the overall welfare budget. They only slightly slow down the rate of increase. And that is because his MPs are too scared to make difficult decisions. But we have to make difficult decisions if we're going to sort our economy. Britain needs real welfare reform if we're to incentivize takers to become makers, if we're to get people into jobs. By 2030, 1 in every £4 raised through income tax will be spent on health and disability benefits alone. That's not even touching the other benefits. That's more than the entire UK defence budget. And in an increasingly dangerous world, that is simply unsustainable. We need a fundamental rethink about which conditions should qualify for long-term financial support. And I was shocked to hear that the majority of new disability claims in this country are now for low-level conditions like anxiety. Research published today by the Centre for Social Justice shows that if we save and focus on supporting those with those really severe conditions, we save £9 billion a year from the welfare bill by 2930. That's where we should be focusing our efforts. That is a serious amount of money, and we can transform so many lives at the same time. But by focusing on treatment to manage those less severe conditions, we can also get more people back into work. That's the crucial thing. And I know it won't be easy. And in fact, I think things are likely to get worse before they get better. Because with such a large parliamentary rebellion at the moment, I'm expecting U-turns on other things, like the two-child benefit cap. That means more spending, more borrowing. And protest parties like Reform are doing very well in the polls because they're promising even more benefits. The fact is, no one, except my party, the Conservatives, is talking about reducing welfare and job creation. And under my leadership, this is new leadership, the Conservative Party will not shy away from confronting the tough questions that need answering and, more importantly, providing the solutions. That is the role of a constructive opposition. And when business leaders, like the CEO of Currys, for example, say government policy is actively working against job creation, we should take note. Business leaders tell me that Labour's employment rights bill will make things worse, that the bill could cost the UK up to £5 billion a year in lost economic growth. That bill is 300 pages of red tape, which nobody running a business asked for. And we know who will pay the price. It'll be young people looking for their first break. It will be those who are left behind because hiring them becomes too risky and too expensive. And it will be smaller businesses, those who cannot afford a legion of HR officers and compliance officers. They're the people who are going to pay the price. But I'm not just here to talk about problems. Everybody can do that. We can all point out problems. You want solutions. So what will we do? I've said that we will remove Labour's red tape. We will remove the ability to strike with zero warning, something businesses cannot prepare for. We will remove the trade union right to roam in business premises. We will remove the new Fair Work Agency, another quango that is designed to hound British businesses, even when no employee has raised a complaint. How did we get to a point where a government felt it could impose these measures on business? We have forgotten a fundamental truth, that every pound spent by government, every benefit paid, it all comes from the makers. Makers who work every hour they can to make ends meet, provide for their families, and keep businesses and public services afloat. Makers are the foundation of our prosperity, and we are allowing too many people to become takers, not makers. It has led to a dangerous shift in thinking. Too many people now see business as something to extract from rather than invest in. They want to tax wealth before it's even created. They've forgotten that every job, every innovation, every export success comes from people in rooms like this who are taking risks. This is a crisis, and the question before us is simple. Who has credible solutions? And I know many of you will be skeptical of politicians standing here making promises, but look at who we are, not just what we say. My shadow chancellor, Mel Stride, built and sold a successful international business. My shadow business secretary, Andrew Griffith, he chaired a FTSE 100 company. Across our party, you will find people, entrepreneurs, who've taken risks, navigated regulations, and created jobs. And for too long, we've been caught in a loop where politicians don't want to make tough choices. Everybody wants to know how their problem will be solved this week, but who is securing the 10-year horizon? We are at a critical moment. People are feeling real pain. Cost of living, high bills, low pay, high taxes, they need a way out. But the crisis isn't just in the numbers, it's in the mindset. Just look at the spending review 2 weeks ago. Gone is the political imagination to even consider a future where the public don't hand a greater and greater share of their hard-earned money for the state to give them just little improvement in return. And too many in politics think growth comes from government, from regulators, central planners. I don't, I never have. There is a gap in the market for a serious centre-right plan, one that understands the power of the private sector to transform lives, one that raises aspiration and delivers higher living standards. And that is the difference between us and our opponents. Because Labour see business as something to regulate and tax. Reform want to turn back the clock and nationalise utilities. We see you, business, as partners in building Britain's future. You know when spending isn't delivering value. Government needs to know the same. This is about running government like you run your businesses, focused on outcomes, not process. And I've seen your regulatory burden firsthand. I was the business secretary. I saw what people were complaining about day after day, the endless forms, the duplicated reporting, the compliance costs that add nothing to productivity. And when I was business secretary, I cut it back. And under my leadership of the Conservative Party, I promise we will do even more. You tell me you can't find staff while we're paying people not to work. That ends under my leadership. And yes, we will cut taxes, but we will do it responsibly. And I say to all those people who worry about jobs, about growth, about public spending, you can't sit back and hope it will sort itself out. You need to speak up. You need to support policies that back enterprise, and you need to challenge those who want more and more state control. Don't just wait for politicians to do it. You need to get on the pitch too. And this isn't just about tax rates and red tape. It's about the country we want to be. Not a Britain of committees and consultations, but one where people have the freedom to build, to create, to grow. So bring us your ideas. We're in opposition. Now is the time for us to get them. All of you who came into my office when I was in government knew it's very hard to change when you're already in government. The train is already on its way. Get in while we're still at the station. We want to hear your priorities. We want to hear your solutions. And that is why I am personally inviting all of you here to participate in this year's Business and SME Day at Conservative Party Conference. I promise you it is going to be fun. But more importantly, it's an opportunity to build together an exciting new policy programme to unleash the potential of business to transform the UK. You don't need to be a Conservative to participate in Business Day. You just need to want what is best for our country. And you can trust me because of my personal record, that when it came down to it, I stood up for business in government, not just in opposition. So back us, tell your customers, speak out, put your name to the cause. We can't turn this country around with polite applause or careful silence. We need your voice. We need your expertise. We need your determination. We all know, all of us in this room know, we can't work half the year for the tax man, while at the same time, half the country doesn't work at all. If we're going to turn those takers into makers, the private sector is going to be absolutely crucial to delivering this. Because no government bureaucracy has ever created long-term wealth. No politician alone can build lasting prosperity. That comes from business, from innovation, from you. Thank you.
And that was Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, speaking at the Vision for Growth conference, criticising, as you'd expect, the Labour Party's economic track record. Did admit at the start, we were not trusted as Conservatives. People wanted change, and they got that change. But then she said, 12 months into the Labour Party, we certainly got change, but change for the worse. Growth halved, 125,000 job losses, 27 new quangos, and then the drum roll, the finale. She invited everybody there to a Conservative Party small business conference that we want to put in their diary. Now, back in the studio here with GBNews reporter Adam Cherry, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the new Reform UK councillor, Layla Cunningham, who recently defected from the Conservatives in Westminster. I want to bring you straight in here, if I could, Layla Cunningham, because you were basically just talking out loud there to your former boss, Kemi Badenoch, and you were just eviscerating practically everything she said. It feels like you're unburdened from the Conservatives and you've got a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, someone texted me the day after I made it public and they said, how do you feel? Are you okay? And I said, am I okay? I feel like it's therapy. You know, I can finally say the truth. And I was sick of lying. I was sick of defending the Conservatives, and I can finally speak the truth because that's what we're in politics for.
And you've defected from the Conservatives to Reform in Westminster. Westminster is a very interesting area. Of course, it's the home of Parliament, but it's also a Labour constituency. It's a constituency, parliamentary constituency of great poverty as well as great privilege. And it's also something that's racked by crime. You've been speaking in particular about how you believe people are utterly sick of street-level crime. And in fact, they called you the vigilante mum. You're a mum of seven. Mum of seven. They called you the vigilante mum. What do you do?
So my kids were being targeted by muggers on my high street. They got targeted twice. The first time, I actually chased the muggers down to the basement of McDonald's, and I called the police and I said, I've got them right here. They're right, because, you know, any mum knows you don't mess with my children. Yeah. You go into attack mode. And they told me, I'm sorry, we don't have any resources to send to you right now. Someone's been stabbed. And I said, surely you can send someone. She goes, do you want to speak to the mother? They told me on the line, then tell them that we're diverting resources to your son's mugger. And so they didn't send anyone. And then there was a group of kids who were targeting my children and their friends almost daily. And the police said, we don't have enough resources to patrol the streets. And I was sick of it. So I had a baby at the time, and I put the baby in the baby carrier. I followed the muggers. And as you know, most muggers now, since COVID, wear a COVID mask or a balaclava. So it's hard to identify, but they do like their trainers. So I took photos of their trainers. I followed them to the estate that they lived in, because they weren't from the area. They were from down the road. I went to the shops that sold these stolen goods. I said, listen, I'm watching you. You will be an accomplice if you do it. And I gave all this intel to the police, and they did catch them. But, of course, with youth, you don't get much. It really takes a lot. And so I did manage to have them banned from the area. And I haven't seen them since. But the press called me vigilante mum. And, you know, all the parents in the school They really wanted to do something about it, but rightly so, they were scared. And I shouldn't have to do that, Martin. I shouldn't have to risk my life. I mean, just to put it into perspective, the Safer Neighbourhood team in my area, comprised of 10 7 years ago, 8 years ago, it's now down to 1 or 2.
Now, Layla, you're also a very successful lawyer, as I understand, a mum of 7, and you're also a Muslim lady, which is very, very interesting. A lot of people would say Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, for example, would say reform have no place in London. They're a racist party. They're not welcome. But you sense change.
It's interesting you say that, because when I would speak to people, I'd be like, you know, I'm thinking, what do you think of reform? They go, oh my God, they're racist. And when I'd actually ask them, OK, why don't you tell me which policy exactly? What have they said exactly that's racist? And they just put their hands up and they go, oh, you know, they are just racist. They couldn't pinpoint to anything. And what I found with reform is the opposite of racism. It doesn't matter who you pray to, your sexual preference, they are here to serve Britain and British people. And what really attracted me to reform, unlike the Conservatives, is that they always put country before party and not party before country. And that's what I want to do. And
you also have been very outspoken about the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan. You say the country, you believe, has lost its way, particularly children, your safety. These are issues that will resonate with older people. You even believe that there's a possibility that Sadiq Khan could be beaten by reform in London. And that'd be a long shot. What makes you say that?
I don't think it's a long shot. I mean, let's face it, the Conservatives are not a credible opposition anymore. And the only opposition is reform. And so many people are unhappy with... I actually haven't met one person who tells me they're going to vote for Sadiq Khan in London. He does win, I don't know how. But the crime... And there's never been a real opposition to him in any election. I don't think, you know, the Conservatives were not a proper opposition last time. And the number one issue facing Londoners is crime. When I speak to people who used to live here and now they've moved abroad, I said, you know, would you ever move back? And they go, move back? You know, why would I move back? I'd get this stolen, that stolen. They do mention the lack of freedom of speech. I get arrested if I put something on Twitter. I mean, that's the international reputation you have. And Martin, I'm born and raised in London. You know, it is like a family member to me. I love it. I'm raising my children here. You know, my 92-year-old mum here came in the 60s and is so patriotic. And that's why I want to save it.
So you're a councillor now. Do you see yourself as a potential future parliamentarian?
I've only been in the party for 4 days now, so I'm here to serve in any way reform needs me.
Sounds like a tentative yes.
I mean, it would be an honour to be a member of Parliament, of course, to represent such a big constituency, bigger constituency than being a councillor. Of course it's an honour, it's a service. And I'm a public servant through and through.
Adam? Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask what the reaction to your former Conservative colleagues has been.
So they have tried to smear me, saying things like she's late to meetings, she's withdrawn from local responsibilities, God knows what that means. Right. That was repeated in full council yesterday. I did call him a liar, the leader of the group. He didn't respond. But on the flip side, I've had so many messages from other councillors across the country saying, Layla, I'm one step away, can we meet for coffee? And further, residents have reached out to me saying, we totally get it.
Well, Nigel Farage has said that you're an enormously talented, successful woman who will add to the professionalism of our London team. And it seems all eyes are on future elections. Layla Cullingham, thank you very, very much for joining us today in the studio. What a story. Thanks for joining us on the show. And, of course, thank you, Adam Sherry. Now, moving on, SAS veterans have said they're being hounded with the threat of prosecution decades after their service, thanks to a shameful betrayal, they say, by the Labour Party. Now, a campaign has been launched with ex-Special Forces commanders and senior MPs to protect the soldiers who bravely defended this country and fought against the IRA. Let's join now a great friend of the show, former SAS officer Matthew Hellier. Matthew, always a pleasure to have you on the show. We've had this conversation so many times, Captain, and here we go again. Still, the witch hunts go on.
Continued witch hunts, yeah. I mean, looking at this now, it's got to a point where, you know, before we were calling out, asking for the chain of command to come forward to support the troopers and the private soldiers, the ones that are getting prosecuted. The Conservative Party before put in a bill that protected our former servicemen and women from prosecution. And this was aligned with a unilateral agreement the Good Friday Agreement. So that protects the British soldiers. The cases that have been brought to the forefront now have all been looked at by the CPS. They've been war games, and there was no evidence. Now, that's why the previous government put in this bill. Let's stop wasting public money now, all right? Let's put this together. Labour have continuously persecuted SAS soldiers to a point now where all of our hierarchy, all of our chain of command have got behind this and said, we can't have this any longer. Although, you know, they are saying, the lawyers that be are saying there's no real evidence, let's just run with this case. We can't just run with this case. We need protection as soldiers. If we don't get protection, I can tell you now, you're not going to have an SAS in the future. Our soldiers will not stand up and fight for this country. When they come back, they will be getting prosecuted. That is being talked about now, and that is serious
and
business.
Matthew Hadley, the reality of some of these historical cases, you've told the story before, please recount it again. Now, there are people inside there, terrorists, IRA terrorists, with machine guns, with large caliber cannon that were capable of causing death, and you had a split-second moment, you had your job to do, you followed orders, you got your job done.
Exactly that. Exactly that. We have reactive observation posts. Our Special Forces teams are reactive. They react to the threat that's in front of them. Just literally weeks before that, my patrol was hit by a mine. IRA placed the pressure pad out, and one of my young soldiers lost both legs. We nearly died on that attack. He has had life-changing injuries. Now, these are the people that we are up against. These are the people that are putting threat, not just on the soldiers, but on the British public in Ulster, in Great Britain. So this is why we need to employ specialist soldiers like the Special Air Service to protect us, to protect the public from these people. What we don't need is a government to come in and persecute and prosecute our soldiers to the point where their lives are in absolute disarray. We have current soldiers now questioning why they should go to war if they're going to get prosecuted. Now, we have the chain of command. Everyone is now standing together. We have a huge march going on the 14th of July when this question, when this repeal of this act gets put across Parliament in the Commons. There's going to be rolling thunder. There's going to be veterans on the streets in Westminster protesting against this government. It's going to be a big one. We can't take it any longer.
OK, well, Matthew Hadley, when that happens, please pop in and see us. Bring some of your buddies. You'll always have a warm seat and a cup of tea in the studio here. Matthew Hadley, thanks for joining us today. And once again, I always say thank you for your service, for what you did for your country, risking your life for Queen and country. Matthew Hadley, absolute pleasure. And now coming up next, could Keir Starmer be set to make yet another U-turn? Last time it was the winter fuel allowance. This time it's benefits. I'm Martin Daubney on GBNews, Britain's News Channel. But now it's time for your weather, and here's Aidan McGibbon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today, and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight. Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west, and outbreaks of persistent rain over western hills. I think drier towards the east and northeast, but largely cloudy. Northern Ireland, likewise, a lot of cloud. Northwest England seeing the damp weather set in firmly during the morning. North Wales similar, but further south across Wales, brighter skies and mostly dry. 1 or 2 spots of rain possible for the southwest of England, but really it's a north-south split by the afternoon, with sunny spells breaking through across southern parts of the UK, albeit with 1 or 2 light showers here and there. Variable amounts of cloud, but thicker cloud and increasingly heavy rain pushing into northwestern parts of the UK, particularly for higher parts of western Scotland. Temperatures here held back as a result, but a warm day in the south, with temperatures reaching the mid or even high 20s in places. Then on Friday night, it's a warm night for many of us, with a lot of cloud cover, continuing to rain in western Scotland. High pressure then builds in from the south during the weekend, bringing increasingly hot air to the south while it stays cooler further north.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M74 southbound at Junction 2 is restricted due to debris, so drivers should exercise caution. Planned maintenance will close the A470 southbound from Upperboat to Nantgarw from 8 this evening until 6 tomorrow morning. Lane closures on the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 27 and 26 in Essex due to a broken down vehicle are causing slowdowns. Expect congestion on the A50 eastbound between the A522 and A518 at Oxeter East. And on the trains, major disruptions continue with Avanti West Coast in Milton Keynes Central and Great Western Railway between Portsmouth Harbour and Fareham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, faced with a rebellion that could have triggered a general election, Keir Starmer is being forced into yet another humiliating U-turn. Last time it was over the winter fuel allowance, and this time it's benefit cuts, with billions being splurged and every single cut, being resisted. Is Britain set to go bust under the Labour Party? And a bombshell poll out today shows a huge 81% of all British voters support the deportation of serious foreign criminals, such as paedophiles and rapists, even if that means that they risk torture. Does this prove once and for all that our woke establishment is completely out of touch with the electorate and reality? And two mega polls in 2 days have both showed that Nigel Farage is on track to become Britain's next Prime Minister, with both the Labour Party and the Tories seeing their vote collapse. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to have your company. Do you sometimes feel something is in the air, something is going on? The polls seem to be showing a complete collapse of faith, of trust, of belief in the establishment parties, and the Reform Party is surging ahead. But is it time to take that leap, or is the party simply not well trusted enough? But there's something else as well. The idea that deporting foreign rapists is now some kind of an extreme or right-wing position has been blown out of the water by an exclusive poll for GB News today. 81% of all voters want to see these kind of scum deported. They do. 79% of Labour voters now agree that foreign rapists should be deported. 80% of Liberal Democrat voters. This is no longer an extreme position. It's now the norm. It's the mainstream. Has the Overton window shifted? And at the same time, the political establishment, which is so terrified of being called racist, hasn't shifted. Is that the void? Is that the schism? Is that the vacuum that something new could move into? I want to know your thoughts. Get in touch. gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do it. I'm joined by Matthew Stadlen in the studio for our customary argument. It's going to be beautiful. Stick around for that. Now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. Very good afternoon to you. At 4 o'clock, the top story this hour. Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed the government is in talks with Labour rebels over possible welfare concessions ahead of a key vote on Tuesday. 126 Labour MPs are now backing an amendment to block the bill, which includes cuts to disability benefits and universal credit changes. The Prime Minister told MPs the goal is reform with Labour values and Labour fairness, but warned the process will be tough going. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is involved in those talks as pressure mounts to soften the blow of £5 billion in cuts. The government still insists, though, the vote will go ahead next week as planned. The NATO alliance is more lethal than ever. That's how the Prime Minister has described it as world leaders commit to boosting defence spending. Sir Keir Starmer says the UK will spend 5% of GDP on national security by 2035 and rebuild Britain's nuclear deterrent. He told MPs today the plan will create 20,000 jobs and secure Britain's place on the global stage. The pledge follows new warnings about threats from Russia, from China and Iran. Well, we can take a listen now to what the Prime Minister had to say to MPs in the Commons earlier today.
It has kept this country safe for decades. But we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing. So we are renewing our existing at-sea capability, and we are going still further. I can tell the House today that we will procure at least 12 F-35A fast jets, and we will make them available to bear nuclear weapons if necessary. Mr. Speaker, this marks the return of the Royal Air Force to nuclear deterrence for the first time in 3 decades, the biggest strengthening of our deterrence posture in a generation, keeping our country safe while also supporting 20,000 jobs.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's defense secretary has said strikes on Iranian nuclear sites were historically successful, despite criticism. Pete Hegseth also fired back at media reports suggesting the strikes had limited impact, following a leaked intelligence report.
What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security that other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal.
The pound has surged today above $1.37, hitting its highest point in almost 4 years. The markets are reacting to reports that Donald Trump might replace the head of the US Federal Reserve sooner than expected. The president has slammed Jerome Powell, calling him terrible and hinting at a change. Traders say they're worried that Donald Trump could pick someone more aligned with his views, weakening the dollar. Back here at home, meanwhile, 3 people have been taken to hospital after a double-decker bus carrying sixth form students crashed into a river in Hampshire. The bus was transporting pupils from Barton Perivale Sixth Form College when it left the road earlier today. 14 others were treated at the scene, with police confirming all passengers have now been accounted for. 3 of those injured are being treated as high-priority cases. Major porn sites will introduce stricter age checks for UK users from the 25th of July. It's part of new Ofcom rules aiming to stop children from accessing harmful content online. The robust age verification will include methods like credit card checks, open banking or facial age estimation. It's the first time the measures have been enforced in the UK. Ofcom says that protecting young users is a top priority. And Jeff Bezos has been targeted yet again by protesters ahead of his star-studded Venice wedding. A mannequin was set up near the canal depicting the Amazon billionaire sat on a toilet in his wedding tuxedo. The stunt, called Pre-Wedding Nerves by the anonymous art collective Con Artists, features Bezos clutching a newspaper with fake US dollars spilling out of a box. It follows a string of protests against the multi-million-pound wedding, with activists blocking the original venue and even threatening to fill the canals with inflatable crocodiles. The couple's wedding has now been moved, but demonstrations continue. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, let's get back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Now, another day and yet another Labour U-turn as the Prime Minister this time looks set to water down his welfare reform plans in a scramble to avoid what would be his first major Commons defeat of his premiership. Now, with more than 120 Labour MPs backing a rebel amendment, pressure is now mounting inside Downing Street to rethink key disability benefit cuts and delay Tuesday's crunch vote. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews reporter Adam Cherry and also by the political commentator Matthew Stadland. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Adam, let's start with you. Is there not a feeling now that despite the fact the Labour Party seems to be on a pretty big spending splurge, by my maths, 240 billion quid and rising, every single time they're asked to make some cuts? And let's face it, we need to make some cuts. They keep telling us themselves. We're in a £22 billion black hole. Yeah. The Labour Party rebels don't like it, be it winter fuel allowance, this time benefits. They're a party that seem big on spending and terrible on saving.
Yeah, well, it's like we've said in the last hour, the winter fuel allowance is at the heart of this. Not necessarily the decision, but the U-turn. Once you U-turned on it and gained absolutely no credit from the public, the damage was done there. All you did there was expose the fact that you will buckle under pressure, and therefore these Labour MPs, who they would argue didn't stand on a manifesto that promised any of this, didn't head into an election thinking they would be expected to defend any of this. They now think, well, I've got a small majority, many of them. You know, we were discussing that Times story, that there are many constituencies where the PIP claimants are larger than the majority of the Labour MP.
51 Labour MPs on a very fragile majority,
Right. And beyond that, there are almost 100 where it's, just sort of touch and go on their margin anyway. So all they're thinking is, well, there's 160 odd of us. There aren't enough seats at the table to get promoted. I've got very little chance of winning my seat based on the current trends, right? So I might as well stick my neck out and be more of an independent and try and vote against this stuff to save my own skin in about 4 years' time.
The trouble with that, though, Matthew Stadler, that seems very self-serving, but isn't the bigger point that if you're seen as a government that U-turns and folds very, very easily, then you're in all sorts of trouble because you're not projecting any strength?
They didn't fold very, very easily on the winter fuel allowance. It took them some months, didn't it? And people who voted for them, such as myself, I was saying that they'd got the threshold wrong very, very early on. And by the way, it wasn't just Labour MPs who were complaining about the winter fuel allowance. It was great swathes of the right-wing media.
It was,
they were getting absolutely hammered. And the media saw this as a wedge issue and a way to attack the government, the idea of vulnerable older people. It's interesting, Adam, you talked about the sort of brittleness and the feeling amongst MPs that they might sort of fold. Maybe that allowed the rebellion to get to the numbers it did. But actually, if this vote goes ahead along the lines that it was proposed, with the policy, the sort of full-fat policy still in place, then the government risks losing it. I mean, unless the Conservatives back them. So it's not about folding. They would just simply lose the vote. On the politics of this, there is no downplaying that at this stage, and we're 4 years away from another election, but it is very damaging to the Labour government and to Keir Starmer. It's not just about authority within his party, it is about the optics within the electorate. Because two flagship policies, and the winter fuel allowance, even though it was only going to save £1 billion or something, and this policy were flagship policies. The winter fuel payment didn't need to be a flagship policy, but it became massive headline news. And on both, it seems that we've had one U-turn, and we'll either have a U-turn or, more likely, serious concessions. And I'll bring a third thing here into this, and that is the rape gangs inquiry, because it did seem at first that Starmer was resisting calls, I think for perfectly well-intentioned reasons, although I early on thought there probably should be an inquiry. But he has then appeared to U-turn on that. And even though that's not a flagship policy, it's a headline policy. And that means that public trust and confidence in the government is undermined. Now, they definitely have time to turn this around. But people like Andrew Marr and Sir Vince Cable, I think, were predicting the political landscape that we're seeing now a year or two or three ago. They were saying that if Starmer doesn't get things sufficiently right in the first couple of years, or if he doesn't make people feel that things are getting sufficiently better, then we are going to lurch to the right. And by the right, they meant more right than the Conservative Party. And this has happened within 11 months.
And that brings us neatly on to our next story. Two big polls in 2 days. One today for YouGov, the second one yesterday for JL Partners. And they're both predicting sizable victories for Reform UK. The one out today, YouGov, 271 seats, not an outright majority. They'd have to do a pact with the Conservatives and then a bit more on top. One yesterday, Electoral Calculus, however, 377 seats for Reform, and the common trend elsewhere, the Labour Party simply slipping away and the Conservatives almost sliding towards extinction.
There are so many interesting things that come from that YouGov sort of mega poll. And again, we're 4 years away. We should still be talking about Labour's agenda and what they've got right so far. And they have got some stuff right so far. Yeah, maybe a honeymoon period, although given how shallow the majority was, that was always going to be a bit unlikely. They might have assumed they were going to get that, but if they did, they were wrong too. But there's so many interesting things come out of this poll. One of them, of course, is that Labour would lose something like 234 of their seats. So from a mega majority, they would slip to 170-odd seats, I think. The other is the crushing of the Conservative Party to sort of 46 seats or whatever it is. But the third thing that might fly under the radar, because these numbers are so spectacular, is that, as you say, even if you add the Reform and the Conservative seats together, you don't get an outright majority. So let us not think that this country has lurched irredeemably to the right, because even with a very unpopular Labour Prime Minister and a very unpopular Labour government at the moment, the right, when you mix the Tories and the Reform, still are not getting a majority.
I wonder, Adam Sherry, if this thing about right-wing is not really applicable anymore. And that brings us to the story that we had today, this poll out. I've got to say, it surprised even me. The notion that paedophiles and rapists should be deported, even if they're at risk of torture in their home country. Now, you might have said a few months ago, this is a right-wing position, what, they're going to be tortured if they're deported. But look, 81% of all voters support it. And when you dive into the party politics, no surprise that Conservative voters, 89, Reform 85, but the Liberal Democrats, 80% of Liberal Democrat voters back the deportation of foreign rapists, even if they'll face torture back home. I wonder if the whole political landscape has shifted. The Overton window has now been shifted by things like the rape gang scandal. It's no longer a question of right-wing anymore. It's about the state of the nation, and it's got to be something radically done to change it.
I think it's right to say the sort of traditional left-right axis is outdated, doesn't quite work for modern politics, particularly after Brexit and for a bunch of reasons which, political scientists can go into. I mean, look, you take Reform, for example, which you would describe as right-wing, I suppose, in traditional terms, but yet some of their policies are, you would argue, interventionist and left-wing. So you can go down that rabbit hole. On immigration, I suppose there is a sort of consensus, a cross-party consensus on this topic, which is interesting, shifting of the Overton window. You even saw Keir Starmer saying, it seems like a long time ago now, do you remember when he said island of strangers, right? So they obviously recognise that this is a serious problem, and it doesn't matter which rosette you're wearing, everyone expects you to do something about it.
And Matthew said, I wonder if that's an interesting thing as well. Like today, Labour insiders are calling for a regime change. Morgan McSweeney, who I've met him, he's been here. I think he's very, very smart. He understands the red wall. He understands the fact the party has to change. They need to make cost savings. They need to be tough on immigration. But a lot of Labour MPs don't buy into that. Is their problem the fact they're two parties? The same as we saw with the Conservative Party over Brexit. There were the wets, there were the hardliners. Now we have a Labour Party which is so broad, so many of them, but so shallow, they can't agree on anything.
I think when you get so many MPs, clearly you're going to get a diversity and a range of opinion. But my impression was, and I may be wrong about this, that Starmer's office had pretty tight control over the candidates who ran for election last summer. So I think this is a really, really important real-life issue that is going to affect and impact people across the country. And if a local MP sees and hears from their constituents that they might be pushed into poverty, and the government's own analysis, I think, finds that the reforms would push 250,000 people, 50,000 of whom are children, into poverty, then that is the sort of thing that they might be prepared to push back with some reluctance against the government. I mean, I'll give you a very quick example. One of my neighbours in social housing came up to me when these reforms were first talked about, the reforms to welfare. She's on PIP. And I had literally persuaded her to go down to the polling booth on the day of the election last year because she wasn't going to bother. She assumed Labour were going to win. I said, for goodness sake, every vote counts. And anyway, whatever you're going to vote, go and vote. She did vote. She voted Labour. She bumped into me again after the reform to PIP was announced. And she said, I don't know why I bothered. Might as well have stuck with the last lot. So Labour, of course, has a problem here. And its constituency of voters is quite narrow because although they got that mega majority, they got it with a relatively small percentage of the vote. The electoral map is really up for grabs, and they are going to be very concerned on the left and they're going to be very concerned on the right. But what really, really, really matters, beyond party politics, beyond whether it's Labour, Reform, whatever, is that the policies are solid. And yes, we need to reform, it seems to me, the welfare state in this country, but let's not do it with such a blunt instrument that people who are already really, really struggling are driven into poverty.
Matthew Stadler, I think you've been spending so much time around GB News, you're starting to talk a load of common sense.
Well, what's fascinating about reform...
The Overton window shifted to...
What's fascinating about reform... I don't think I've said anything that would traditionally be seen as right-wing. I'm trying to give you my analysis. What you were saying, Adam, about whether actually in some ways reform is on the left, traditionally, Nigel Farage at the moment has the luxury of being able to cherry-pick policies. And, for example, he has said that he wants to reverse the two-child benefit cap.
It's retail politics.
That, at the moment, puts him to the left of the Labour Party. They're in government. They haven't yet done that. There have been noises to suggest they might do it, but they haven't done it.
All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Fascinating conversation. Excellent. Thank you both to you, gentlemen. Now, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, not on benefits, but ours. Your chance to win £54,321 and our biggest cash prize to date. And all of that is tax-free. And here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
We're here at Down Hall in Essex to enjoy the finer things in life. And it's your chance to win £54,321 in cash. It's like having an extra £1,000 in your bank account each week for a whole year, which means that you'd be able to indulge in treats whenever you wanted to. That extra cash each week could send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing this year to enable you to sit back, relax and do nothing. Make sure you don't miss out on our biggest cash giveaway to date.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good look, and coming up next, are the Labour Party betraying our veterans by repealing key Northern Ireland legislation that protected them from prosecution? Also, a bombshell report shows, as we discussed, a huge 81% of all British voters, all voters, now support the deportation of serious foreign criminals such as paedophiles and rapists, even if it means that they risk torture in their home countries. That's next with me, Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Come back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth. Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie's here. I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's laugh there. Now, welcome back. It is 4:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, GB News can exclusively reveal that an overwhelming majority of the great British public back kicking out serious foreign criminals, even if they risk torture in their home country. Well, here to tell us more is GB News national reporter and Trick Award winner Charlie Peters. Charlie, I've got to say, this poll really surprised me. I expected perhaps Conservative voters and Reform voters to be taking this position, but the poll says this is actually now becoming the British norm. Incredible.
Yes, Martin, and shared exclusively with us by JL Partners, that pollster, sample of 1,000 adults, finding that all main political parties back this deportation policy. They think that serious criminals, including rapists and murderers, should be deported to their country of origin, even if they are facing a risk of torture. And there are those polling results on your screen. For those listening at home, it's 89% of 2024 Conservative voters, 85% for Reform, 80% Lib Dems, 79% Labour and 72% Green Party voters at last year's election backing this stance. And Guy Campbell, a director at JL Partners who sent me this polling, said that these results show that the British public is losing patience with the inability to send dangerous foreign criminals back to their countries of origin. He said that far from being an extreme position, these results show that the public, including voters of all main parties, want the government to move further and faster in making sure that human rights laws aren't blocking further deportations. We also found that the British public was in favour of the government refusing visa applications from countries that refuse to accept people being deported from Britain. And I think JL Partners were particularly keen to send us that line because this comes just a week after GB News revealed that British and Pakistani ministers are currently locking horns over high-level discussions about grooming gang offenders, with the Pakistani ministers suggesting that the return of their prohibited airline, their flag carrier, could lead to gang abusers being deported. Well, the Shadow Justice Minister, Robert Jenrick, told GB News when we revealed that story that instead the state should be applying visa penalties rather than engaging in these diplomatic give us an airline and we'll give you deportees approach. They should just punish Pakistan and say you won't get any opportunities for your workers to emigrate to this country. You know, last year, approximately 76,000 nationals emigrated to Britain, from that country. 31,000 on work visas, a further 30,000 entering on study visas, and 15,000 into Britain on other routes. So here you have it, Martin. Very popular polling for applying visa penalties and for deporting serious offenders back to their countries of origin, even if they are at risk of serious harm or torture. I should say also there's an interesting geographic split. Funnily enough, Martin, Northerners favour deportations at 84%, but shortly behind them, us Southerners, 82% will back deportations at this level as well. Which country, Martin, do you think is the most pro-deportation in this polling?
Pro-deportation, which country?
Of the 4 constituent nations of the UK.
England.
Oh, you're wrong. It's Scotland, 85%, putting it well ahead of Wales on 66. And although all age brackets supported the policy, as you can understand, there was a slight discrepancy with younger Brits being less in favour than older Britons, than our veterans in our community. But all age brackets, all backgrounds, all nations, all parties, they all think that this policy should go ahead. Breaking with that consensus, have you heard from Guy Miscampbell that this is an extremist position? Actually, it's the standard view of the great British public.
Do you know what, John Beers? I think we're approaching that moment where the Overton window has now shifted so much. The public discord, the public disgust with rape gangs, with the failure to deport serious criminals, the nonsense of chicken nuggets, of having the wrong kind of facial hair, pretending you're gay, suddenly becoming Christian. I think people are seeing through it. I really, really do. And I think people are just sick and tired of it. And even I was surprised by this. I got it completely wrong. The Scottish, the SNP tell us, Charlie Peters, refugees welcome. This is come by our territory. And here we are when reality bites. It's an incredible poll, Charlie Peters. And I really do think a lot of your reporting on rape gangs is what's making people wake up to the reality. Charlie Peters, excellent as ever. Thank you very much for joining me on the show, Captain. Pleasure. And lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock. Are the Labour Party betraying our veterans by repealing key Northern Ireland legislation that protected them from prosecution? That's next with me, Martin Daubney. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
4:30, the headlines from the newsroom this hour. More lethal than ever. That is how the Prime Minister has described the NATO alliance as he highlighted the UK's commitment to strengthening the nuclear deterrent.
It has kept this country safe for decades. But we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed talks with Labour rebels will continue over welfare concessions ahead of a vote. With 126 MPs now planning to block the bill, the Prime Minister insists reform will be tough but fair. The pound has surged above $1.37, hitting its highest point in almost 4 years. Markets are reacting to reports that Donald Trump might replace the head of the US Federal Reserve. A double-decker bus carrying college students has crashed into a river in Hampshire. 5 people, including the driver, are in hospital. 2 are in a serious condition. Get ready for a scorcher. Amber heat health alerts are in place as temperatures are set to soar to 34 degrees this weekend. Forecasters say expect humidity and pressure on health services. And Jeff Bezos has been targeted again by protesters ahead of his star-studded wedding. A mannequin was set up near the Venice Canal, showing the billionaire sat on a toilet. The couple's wedding has now moved location, but demonstrations continue. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight.
Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, yeah, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England, into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west, and outbreaks of persistent rain over western hills. I think drier towards the east and northeast, but largely cloudy. Northern Ireland, likewise, a lot of cloud. Northwest England seeing the damp weather set in firmly during the morning. North Wales similar, but further south across Wales, brighter skies and mostly dry. 1 or 2 spots of rain possible for the southwest of England, but really it's a north-south split by the afternoon, with sunny spells breaking through across southern parts of the UK, albeit with 1 or 2 light showers here and there. Variable amounts of cloud, but thicker cloud and increasingly heavy rain pushing into northwestern parts of the UK, particularly for higher parts of western Scotland. Temperatures here held back as a result, but a warm day in the south, with temperatures reaching the mid or even high 20s in places. Then on Friday night, it's a warm night for many of us, with a lot of cloud cover, continuing to rain in western Scotland. High pressure then builds in from the south during the weekend, bringing increasingly hot air to the south while it stays cooler further north.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Major traffic disruptions in Newtown due to the A489 closure are causing diversions. In Staffordshire, 15-minute delays are reported on the A50 eastbound due to heavy congestion. On the M1 northbound in Northamptonshire, traffic flow is slowed by a lane closure due to a broken down vehicle. Further disruptions occur on the M20 eastbound in Kent, where a lane is closed following a collision. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services around Milton Keynes Central are experiencing disruptions, and there are delays on Great Western Railway between Portsmouth Harbour and Fareham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 4:36 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, SAS veterans have said they're being hounded with the threat of prosecution decades after their service, thanks to a shameful betrayal they claim by the Labour Party. Now, a campaign has been launched with ex-Special Forces commanders and senior MPs to protect the soldiers who bravely defended this country and fought against the IRA. I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the retired SAS Commander Aldwyn White. Aldwyn, welcome to the show. A pleasure once again to have your company. So we're reaching a critical mass now, it appears, where SAS operatives like yourself are saying enough is enough. This must stop. There's going to be a debate in Parliament and I believe a march in London on July the 14th. Tell us why you believe this persecution has simply gone too far.
The real problem with it is that you've got a breach of confidence and trust, as it were, between the government and between forces that are supporting the government. And obviously are the thin line, frankly, in particularly domestically in the counter-terrorist capability that we have. And if you break that, it's not good. If we look at September last year, when the Met Police announced that, in fact, if the Carver case had gone wrong in similar sort of circumstances, and you'll remember that case, that they would then all hand in their firearms. And that would mean that in the Greater London area, there wouldn't be a single armed policeman. Well, after you go beyond that, actually, frankly, you wind up with the regiment, which provides the UK counter-terrorist team. And it is a thin line. These people actually have to be respected, because if you break that line of trust, you're going to soon run out of a proper capability for your threats.
And Aldwyn, tell us about some of your service. I mean, you commanded the UK's 22 SAS regiment, and in your time, you have to make split-second decisions. You're following deadly orders. Your life is on the line. The notion that decades later you can be pursued by a court of law for what you do in the heat of the moment, with all the training you have, is astonishing.
I think that the boys are trained amazingly well. And they have to be, because, you don't, as it were, play in the Premier League unless you are, and you want to come out on top when you get into an incident. But I think the point that we're making here is that we're well capable and we're well rehearsed. We're well rehearsed on the legal side of it. But if actually people are not confident when they're asked to go in front of terrorists, when they're asked to put their lives at risk, that actually the outcome subsequently might go completely against them, that's going to break down the trust and the link. And I think that's our main thing. But the second issue that's really worrying us is looking at the national level in terms of national security, national interest. We don't see that there is a working legal framework for these operations. There is not a working legal framework within which we are confident. And I think that's a really crucial point. We now work in a world where actually human rights, as we've seen across the board in many, many other issues, are dictating outcomes. You're in very difficult circumstances where you're trying to introduce human rights into countering terrorism.
And Aldwyn, in particular, one of the cases which is spoken about all these years later, of course, is the Colville police station in Northern Ireland in 1992. SAS operatives are still being pursued over that. And I just want to try and convey to the viewers and the listeners of GB News the severity, the seriousness of what happened there. Because IRA terrorists, they machine gunned a police station, right, with a heavy caliber firearm that was Russian, and then moments later you were sent to deal with them. Just get across the reality of that war, that situation, and you followed orders and did your job.
There will be some intelligence. The intelligence is never perfect. There will be an indication that there's going to be an attack at that scale with what we would call ASU, a standard sort of IRA unit, is a serious attack. You're never quite sure where it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, but there might be an attack. So you deploy in order to actually intercept that attack, because if you don't, that may go somewhere else. If you don't, there will be no intelligence maybe on the second one, and it'll happen without you having any idea what's going to happen, and you won't be able to apprehend it. You deploy to do that, but it never actually works out how you think it might. In this particular attack, it turned out to be, say, a heavy machine gun, 12.7, which is a large Russian weapon at a police station. The terrorists also had GPMG, they had AKs. So for the people deployed on the ground, slightly incorrectly to start off because you don't know the fuller situation, for the people deployed on the ground, they hear heavy bursts of fire. They can see the tracer, they can hear the ricochet and all of that. There was then subsequently another burst of fire as this approaches them. And the next thing that they're faced with is a large truck, which has got a heavy machine gun on it, people in it who are armed with AKs, and there are other folks with in cars who are part of the team, and there's definitely a GPMG. The case, when it came, the accuracy actually of what occurred in the case, the interpretation of what occurred militarily on the ground by the judge, who actually has zero military experience, did really not give an accurate portrayal of what occurred on that night. And that is one of the main issues. And I think we'll find that when it goes up for a judicial review, that there are some very, very large holes in the case as it was put forward.
And let's be resolutely clear on this, and if this was potential to fire grenades at the police station, heavy caliber machine gun fire, AK-47s, Kalashnikovs, these are fully armed terrorists, armed to the teeth, set out to cause deadly intent. This isn't a practice drill. And you're sent to eliminate them on orders of Her Majesty the Queen. You did your job in that split second. That's the point of the SAS. That's what you do.
The thing is that you're actually sent to apprehend these people. Ideally, obviously, you would capture them. In the circumstances, if you have a direct threat of life or limb, then there is nothing much that you can do but open fire, or you're going to get killed. And then in this instance, one of the soldiers there was shot through the mouth directly through the mouth. So you're coming under fire. You can't actually stand up and say, we're arresting you here. It's just not possible. And there is this sort of idea out there that somehow you can massage these things, let these things occur to such a point that you can obviously get a different conclusion. And that's all very well when talking in a courtroom, but actually live on the ground, when it's happening around you, you have to make instantaneous decisions. And earlier on, we've had people who've been hit and indeed killed because they have tried to arrest armed terrorists, which is not a thing you should really try to do.
OK, well, thank you for sharing that with us. The grisly reality of, engagement on the ground is, as you say, nothing like the cosy arrangement inside a courtroom all those years later. Thanks for sharing that with us and help us try and understand the reality, the grisly nature of armed conflict. Thank you very much. And thank you for your service. Retired SS Commander Aldwyn White. Pleasure to have you. There you go, you see. I mean, these boys are heroes. They're doing this in real time. They're doing it for country. They're risking their own lives. And all these years later, they're being persecuted. It's astonishing to hear their stories. It genuinely is. Thank you. Now, if it's some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Lots of hot and sunny weather around the Mediterranean at the moment. Temperatures rising again in Spain. Quite a brisk breeze blowing at times over the Canaries. Some fine sunny weather here. A bit breezy too along the Portuguese coast, but a lot of sunshine across much of Iberia, through Italy and across the Greek islands as well. It'll turn a little cooler across the eastern Med as we head into the weekend, but temperatures continuing to rise in Spain and Portugal on Saturday and Sunday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Vegetarians now have a greater desire to wield power more than their meat-eating counterparts. I mean, you like a sausage, don't you, Biggins?
I like a sausage, but I have gone off meat per se, funnily enough, as I'm getting older. I think there are, it takes a lot of eating a piece of meat, if you pardon the expression.
And the older you get, the more you find that it takes a lot of meat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I must admit, I have more of a conscience about eating meat as I get older.
Yeah.
And that's a fondness of animals brings that. And if you ever go on Instagram and you look at cows and horses and pigs,
they're wonderful
they're all
things.
affectionate
I
and
know,
incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And there we are, putting it into our mouths and eating it.
What
What do you think about the move to enforce vegetarianism on people, though? Because especially in schools and some universities, there's this trend for Meat-Free Monday, where there's this enforced absence of meat on children.
I think it's ridiculous. Let kids do what they want, to be honest. Within reason, obviously, a healthy diet, da-da-da-da-da. But no, I think, you know, I don't eat meat, the husband eats meat. It's not an issue. Eat what you want. But I think that the fact that they're trying to force this into schools, look, let kids experiment, give them a vegetarian option.
Yes,
let
yeah,
them
and all
see
schools do that.
Just options.
It has just become political, and also there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I know children are often told that eating meat is terrible for the environment, but importing avocados thousands of miles is also terrible for the environment.
But also, I mean, a lot of vegetarian meals, certainly processed vegetarian meals, have got a load of salt and fat and sugar in them, so they're actually worse for you than eating a lean piece of meat.
I think the tide is turning now, because the new trend amongst young people, particularly young men, is protein. Chicken, breasts, tuna. That's the new trend, to get as much protein in them as possible. It's very difficult to do when you're vegetarian.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a widespread amber heat alert has been issued by the UK Health Security Agency amid concerns for health risks related to the high temperatures that are about to hit the UK. Now, the amber warning will be in place in 5 regions, including the East Midlands, the South East, the South West, the East and London from midday tomorrow. Well, to tell us more is the meteorologist and the Met Office presenter, Alex Deakin. Alex, apparently we're about to be blasted by a Mediterranean furnace. I said, beautiful, bring it on.
It is going to get a little toasty. Yeah, it's the humidity that's going to rise. I think that would be the thing that people notice the most. It's going to be pretty tricky for sleeping at night, and those temperatures by day will be ticking up. Many of us will enjoy it this weekend with that sunshine around, but it's not going to be sunny everywhere. Last time we had a heat wave last week, most of the UK saw those temperatures rising, but parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, they're not going to experience the heat this time around. So if you don't like it, that's the place to be this weekend. But for, a good chunk of England and Wales, the mercury is definitely rising.
Now, Alex Deakin, of course, a lot of people will say, oh, this must be climate change, but you're probably not as old as me. I remember 1976. This is what it was like, the beautiful summer of 1976. Is this part of a longer-term trend, or is it just nice weather?
No, it's definitely part of a trend. We've seen lots of hot summers recently, record-breaking heat over many of the recent summers, the hottest summer on record, matching that of 76. But we've seen them more recently, and the trend is clear. We're breaking records far more frequently. We're seeing these records go, and we're also seeing heavier downpours. When we do see these storms come that inevitably break these heat waves, they're packing more of a punch in terms of heavy rain, creating more flooding issues as well. So it is something we need to get used to. It's something we can expect more of in the coming years. We're getting more and more likely to break or reach 40 degrees again, as we did just a few years ago. So yes, we have seen hot summers in the past, but they are becoming more and more frequent, and they're getting more and more intense.
And Alex Deakin, no doubt, as sure as night follows day, there'll be a hosepipe band come in 5 minutes' time.
Well, we have had a very dry spring, so that is something to take consideration of. Obviously, you know, the water levels have factored in over longer periods. We did have quite a wet winter as well. So it's something, obviously, that people will be monitoring. We work closely with the Environment Agency and the Flood Forecasting Centre based here next to where I am as well. So it's obviously something we'll be keeping an eye on. But at the moment, I say the main focus, particularly this weekend, will be those temperatures. Most places will be fine. Most people will be able to enjoy it and have a lovely time, but there are the vulnerable, the elderly, the young people, and people who do not cope well with this kind of heat. And so that is why we have to pay attention to it, and that is why we have to let people know that they should be wearing the sunscreen and staying hydrated.
Beautiful. Well, I'll be down the Lido with a couple of cold beers on my claw. Thank you very much, Alex Deakin. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Now, coming up, could Sir Keir Starmer be set to make another U-turn? I'll be joined by Ben Habib, the guard dog of Brexit, for his thoughts with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. But first, here is your weather with Aidan McGibbon.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight. Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius. Typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England, into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west, and outbreaks of persistent rain over western hills. I think drier towards the east and northeast, but largely cloudy. Northern Ireland, likewise, a lot of cloud. Northwest England seeing the damp weather set in firmly during the morning. North Wales similar, but further south across Wales, brighter skies and mostly dry. One or two spots of rain possible for the southwest of England, but really it's a north-south split by the afternoon, with sunny spells breaking through across southern parts of the UK, albeit with one or two light showers here and there. Variable amounts of cloud, but thicker cloud and increasingly heavy rain pushing into northwestern parts of the UK, particularly for higher parts of western Scotland. Temperatures here held back as a result, but a warm day in the south with temperatures reaching the mid or even high 20s in places. Then on Friday night, it's a warm night for many of us with a lot of cloud cover, continuing to rain in western Scotland. High pressure then builds in from the south during the weekend, bringing increasingly hot air to the south while it stays cooler further north.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Significant travel disruption has been reported on the A9 near Moy due to a broken down vehicle. The A489 in Newtown is fully closed with diversions in place. On the M57, southbound travellers face delays due to a lane closure. Eastbound motorists on the A50 in Staffordshire should expect congestion. Northamptonshire's M1 northbound has a lane closed from a breakdown. And on the trains, there's major disruption impacting Avanti West Coast at Milton Keynes Central and Great Western Railway between Portsmouth Harbour and Fareham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
GB. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's News Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, faced with a rebellion that could have triggered a general election, Keir Starmer is being forced into yet another humiliating U-turn. Last time it was over the winter fuel allowance. This time it's over benefits cuts. But with billions being splurged and every single cut resisted, is Britain set to go bust under Labour? Now, the bombshell poll exclusively for GB News shows a huge 81% of all British voters supports the deportation of serious foreign criminals such as paedophiles and rapists, even if that means they risk being tortured in their home country. Now, this isn't a far-right view. Does it prove once and for all that our woke establishment is completely out of touch with reality? And 2 mega polls in 2 days have both showed that Nigel Farage is now on track to become Britain's next Prime Minister, with both the Labour Party and the Tories seeing their votes completely collapse. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, to show, it's a pleasure to have your company for the first part of the show. I'll also be joined by my studio guest, Ben Habib, the god dog of Brexit. He'll have a few choice words to say, no doubt, about the prospect of yet another U-turn from the Labour Party. Last time, winter fuel allowance. This time, it is the benefits cut. And I said to Ben Habib, a bit sexist, but I'm going to say it again. Is this like having a wife who's addicted to spending? Addicted to going on spending splurges, and yet if you threaten to withdraw one of the credit cards, they threaten to divorce you. It just seems to me that we have a government that's spending, by my reckoning, £240 billion and counting so far, with an additional 50 billion quid chucked in the mix yesterday to reach that 4.1% target on GDP for defence. And yet every single time they try and make some vital cuts, remember, they told us we were in a black hole of £22 billion, or by my reckoning, They've already spent 11 times that since coming to power. Yet when you say, let's have a cutback, they revolt, they rebel, they throw their toys out the pram, and never the twain shall meet. That's coming next with Ben Habib, hopefully minus any sexist comments. I got that out of the way earlier on. Get in touch the usual way, gbnews.com/you'll say. Now it's time for your headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good evening to you. Just coming up to 3 minutes past 5. The top story. Sir Keir Starmer has now confirmed the government is in talks with Labour rebels over possible welfare concessions ahead of a key vote on Tuesday. 126 Labour MPs are now backing an amendment to block that bill, which includes cuts to disability benefits and universal credit changes. The Prime Minister told MPs today the goal is reform with Labour values and fairness, but warned the process will be tough going. The Chancellor is also involved in those talks as pressure mounts to soften the £5 billion of cuts. The government still insists, though, the vote will go ahead next week as planned. The NATO alliance is more lethal than ever. That is how the Prime Minister has described it today as world leaders commit to boosting defence spending. Sir Keir Starmer says the UK will spend 5% of GDP on national security by 2035 and rebuild Britain's nuclear deterrent. He told MPs today the plan will create 20,000 jobs and secure Britain's place on the global stage. The pledge follows new warnings about threats from Russia, from China and Iran. Well, here's what the Prime Minister had to say to MPs in the Commons earlier today.
It has kept this country safe for decades, but we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing. So we are renewing our existing at-sea capability, and we are going still further. I can tell the House today that we will procure at least 12 F-35A fast jets, and we will make them available to bear nuclear weapons if necessary. Mr. Speaker, this marks the return of the Royal Air Force to nuclear deterrence for the first time in 3 decades, the biggest strengthening of our deterrence posture in a generation, keeping our country safe while also supporting 20,000 jobs.
Donald Trump's defence secretary has said that strikes on Iranian nuclear sites were historically successful, despite criticism. Pete Hegseth also fired back at media reports suggesting the strikes had limited impact following a leaked intelligence report.
What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security. That other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal.
Well, the pound has surged above $1.37, hitting its highest point in almost 4 years. The markets are reacting to reports that Donald Trump might replace the head of the US Federal Reserve sooner than expected. The president slammed Jerome Powell, calling him terrible and hinting at a change. Traders are now worried Donald Trump could pick someone more aligned with his views, weakening the dollar. Meanwhile, here at home, 3 people have been taken to hospital after a double-decker bus carrying sixth form students crashed into a river in Hampshire. The bus was transporting pupils from Barton Perivale Sixth Form College when it left the road earlier today. 14 others were treated at the scene, and police have confirmed all passengers have now been accounted for. 3 of those injured, though, are being treated as high-priority cases in hospital. Major porn sites will introduce strict age checks for UK users from the 25th of July. It's part of new Ofcom rules aiming to stop children accessing harmful content online. The robust age verification will include methods like credit card checks, open banking or facial age estimation. It's the first time the measures have been enforced in the UK, and Ofcom says protecting young users is a top priority. And in Venice, Jeff Bezos has been targeted yet again by protesters ahead of his star-studded wedding there. A mannequin was set up near the canal depicting the Amazon billionaire sat on a toilet in his wedding tuxedo. The stunt, called Pre-Wedding Nerves by the anonymous art collective Con Artists, featuring Bezos catching a newspaper with fake US dollars spilling out of a box. It follows a string of protests against the multi-million-pound wedding, with activists blocking the original venue and even threatening to fill the canals with inflatable crocodiles. The couple's wedding has now moved location, but demonstrations are continuing. That's the news on GB News. Plenty more still to come with Martin. Let's head there right now.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Now, another day and yet another Labour U-turn as the Prime Minister this time looks set to water down his welfare reform plans in a scramble to avoid what would be his first major Commons defeat of his premiership thus far. Now, with more than 120 Labour MPs backing a rebel amendment, pressure is now mounting inside Downing Street to rethink key disability benefit cuts and delay Tuesday's crunch vote. Well, I'm joined in the studio to discuss this by GB News reporter Adam Cherry and the chairman of the Great British Political Action Committee, Ben Habib. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Adam, let's start with you. So there's another round of cuts and another rebellion. Last time they went to fuel allowance, this time it is over the benefits. But it just seems to me that any time this government is asked to make any form of savings cuts, they throw their toys out of the pram.
Yeah, and after the winter fuel U-turn, I think we can expect this to happen basically every time. That was, as we've been saying repeatedly, that was the original sin. Ignore the decision in the first place by Rachel Reeves. I'm talking specifically about the U-turn. You could argue they should have just stuck with the policy in the first place, because now they've U-turned, they have proved that they will buckle under pressure. And you see it here, £5 billion is a lot to URI. It is not much at all to the Treasury. And you've been rattling some figures over the last couple of hours, right? So this is a small amount, and they can't even get this through the Commons because all these MPs have seen that they will, turn on a dime, and they're worried about their own skin. They look at their own majorities and they think, you know what, actually, OK, to be charitable, you would say they didn't stand on a manifesto pledging this, so they're worried about it. They feel it's unpopular, and so they're not U-turns. They're going to fight against it.
Yeah, there are 51 Labour rebels who would lose their seats over benefit cuts on tiny majorities. Top of the pecking order, by the way, Neil Duncan Jordan in Poole, a majority of 18. But there are 5,300 people in his constituency who would lose their PIP allowances. So these
of course, that's on their minds. Yeah.
Are they fighting for their own political hides?
I mean, maybe that's a cynical way of putting it. You could also argue that they're trying to represent their own constituents.
Yeah.
You could say there are thousands of people in my constituency who will be deeply affected by this, and I'm prepared to stick my own neck out and say I might lose the whip, but I will vote for my constituents rather than for the sake of the party.
Ben Habib, let's bring you in now. We seem to be in a position where we are addicted to spending. By my reckoning, it's 240 billion and counting since the Labour Party came into power, and yet they have a total aversion to doing any form of cuts or austerity, and that is no way surely to run a country.
Absolutely. I mean, they're not new to this. Before they came to power, we already had borrowing at a post-World War II high, taxation at a post-World War II high. And I think what successive governments have forgotten is that it's the private sector that earns the money, that pays the taxes, which then enrich the state and allow the state to do that which they need to. But they have increasingly, the state, the tentacles of the state have increasingly invaded our private lives and set aside private businesses, almost as if they're the devil and the state needs to be borrowing more, taxing more and spending more. You will hear non-stop about the need for further expenditure, seeing through HS2, housing illegal migrants, paying benefits to foreigners who are in the country, all that kind of... They do that without a blink of an eyelid. You talk to them about tax cuts for businessmen, for working class, for the middle class, empowering people to make decisions on their own, and they absolutely say, well, that's unfunded. We couldn't possibly afford that. Well, what I say to Rachel Reeves is, in her budget, in her first budget, she promised, having cited the so-called £22 billion black hole that they inherited from the Tories, she cited £70 billion worth of additional expenditure in that one budget alone. And the OBR, the wretched OBR, who I do not trust for a moment, said that your budget itself is finely balanced on the tax take that you're forecasting coming in. And guess what, Martin? That tax take hasn't come in. Because when you increase employers' national insurance, which is what she did, you actually tax jobs. When you tax jobs, less people employ, less people work, you get less tax take. And this is the vicious circle which we are now finding ourselves in. It is a spiral downwards. The more they tax, the less the economic organism will respond, and down we go. And the more they'll tax in order to keep their spending habits going.
So Ben, if I just jump in, where would you take an axe to the state, to the spending? Where would you target as a priority?
Well, there are, first of all, welfare and benefits, together with pensions, are now pushing £400 billion a year. That's nearly 40% of the state's budget. The NHS used to be the biggest spend. That's at about $240 billion. We have to slash welfare and benefits. We have to wake up to the fact that you can't claim you've had mental health issues for 3 years and you continue to get bailed out by the state. There has to be a limit on how long you remain unemployed. There has to be an obligation on you to try and get work. And you must lose your benefits and your support from the state if you don't respond to those imperatives. So slash welfare, slash benefits. We need some tough medicine. We also, by the way, need to slash taxes on the working class, because if you slash taxes on the working class and you slash benefits, you create a much bigger gap between what you can earn if you work and what you get if you're on benefits.
What about benefits for those born overseas? What do you do about that?
Can I just quickly say, when you get people back in the workforce, instead of them taking benefits, they start paying tax. It's a double benefit to the country, to the state. And for foreigners on benefits, there should be no one on benefits in this country other than British citizens. By no measure can you have been here long enough, if you're not a British citizen, and claim benefits. And, of course, the most egregious example of this is the support we give to people who've criminally entered the United Kingdom, who cost us the thick end of £10 billion a year. And the benefits to which you're referring, I think it's about 1.5 million foreigners on benefits in the UK, costing us a purported 7 to 8 billion. I think the figure's a lot higher. Add those two together, Martin, you've got the thick end of £20 billion a year. That's a meaningful sum of money. That's the black hole that the Labour Party kept pointing to when they inherited government.
Funny enough, that 20 billion is only actually a quarter of the saving. The 5 billion wouldn't even touch the sides of that big benefit. But you're also here, Ben Habib, today to talk about the continuing legal battles over the Chagos Islands. You've thrown some of your own money into the ring to try and keep that going. Tell us about that.
OK, so a very brave couple of Chagossians have brought a case which has been funded by, crowdfunded partly by me and others, to challenge the government in handing the Chagos Islands over to Mauritius without having consulted the Chagossians. I mean, the interesting thing about the agreement that we've signed with Mauritius is that in the opening paragraphs, we talk about the injustices that have been done to the Chagossians in the past when they were removed forcibly from the Chagos archipelago to Mauritius and to the United Kingdom. And here we are, handing over their territory to a foreign power without consulting them. And this is all, by the way, under the European Convention of Human Rights. So the ECHR serves to hijack this country in its ability to police its borders, hijack our ability to do what's right for British citizenry, opening the floodgates to other people coming to this country, but it won't protect the people that it should protect, like the Chagossians, and indeed the British people. The British people didn't vote to give up Chagos. It's part of the United Kingdom. It was.
OK, Ben Habib, always full of beans. You've had your Weetabix. Ben Habib, the chairman of the Great British Political Action Committee. Thank you for coming in to see us today at GB News, and good luck with that continued legal challenge with Misley Mandarin, of course, great friend of the show. Thank you very much. And moving on, well, let's speak now with the former Labour spokesman, James Matthewson. James, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. Let's get straight into this benefits rebellion. The fact of the matter is we have to make difficult decisions in this country. We have a huge national debt now, £5 billion in savings. A lot of people say that doesn't go far enough, and yet The Labour Party, or at least a big part of it, they simply won't face reality. We have to make difficult cuts.
There's a problem here, Martin, okay? And that's because what you're talking about unchallenged on your programme is conservative economics, right? Economics that are right-wing, economics that you believe in, economics that Ben Habib believes in, all right? That's fine. That's what you believe in. It's not what the Labour Party is going to do, nor is it what the Labour Party should do, because it's not what the Labour Party was established in the year 1900 to do. It's not what the Labour Party exists now to do. The Labour Party exists to provide a strong welfare state. You've got a millionaire. I like Ben, right? Ben's a good lad, but he's a millionaire. And he's sitting there saying that what we need to do more than anything is slash welfare for people. I mean, it's absolute nonsense, by the way. And I think...
James, I don't know quite why you're direct your chagrin towards Ben Habib about cutting benefits. It's Keir Starmer's idea.
No, exactly, that's my point, is that Keir Starmer has drifted so far away from what the Labour Party is meant to represent. And of course, I understand your attacks on it are coming from each angle and all the rest of it. You know, you would like to see more cuts, you would like to see them confidently cut and all the rest of it. But with all due respect, you're not a Labour Party member, you're not a Labour Party voter or supporter, nor should you be with your politics. What I want to see is
again, why are you trying to look? We have to balance the books. You know, Rachel Reeves herself put this forward. Liz Kandor put this forward. Keir Starmer. You can't just say this is right wing. This is extreme. This is uncaring. This is your party, mate.
Yes, the problem is that the Labour Party, under their leadership right now, is trying to emulate the politics of the Reform Party. It's panicked. It's looking at the likes of the polls that it's seen, that YouGov MRP poll that came out. It's looking at things like that and saying, we need to try and react to that. People want to see cuts to benefits. People want to see all the... It's not. People want to see confidence. They want to see a party stand on its values and its morals and its beliefs. Look at the likes of Zoran Mamdani in New York, who just won an outstanding support in the Democratic primary. If the Labour Party would only stand up and say, this is what we believe in, this is why we believe in it, then it could get swathes of the British public behind it, rather than, you know, trying to kowtow to the likes of Nigel Farage on welfare. It's ridiculous.
But the fact of the matter is, you can say that all you like. You have a divided Labour Party, and you can say we have to give away endless billions of pounds to people on benefits until the end of time. Maybe go to Corbyn's allotment and try and grow a new magic money tree. The fact of the matter is the country is potless. We have to make cuts. And the point is, the Labour Party is meant to be the party of working people. You're becoming the party of the work shy.
It's not true at all. It's not work shy either, Martin. Have you lived on benefits anytime soon? Have you done a UC application in the past couple of years? Because let me tell you, it's no easy task trying to navigate...
I go to work and pay my taxes.
Listen, so there are many people out there who would love to go to work and pay their taxes. It's not about
people who are dodging work, James. Face reality, there are many people gaming the system, filling out a form online and making out that they've got mental health issues when perhaps they haven't.
It's ridiculous to claim. You're conflating disability benefits with out-of-work benefits. You just putting them all together and saying that it's a complete mess, that it's too much money, that we can't afford it. I'm sorry,
yes,
I don't want to live in a country... I don't want to live in a country that can't look after its own citizens. It's an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, people who genuinely deserve benefits, the genuinely disabled...
You don't get to decide, Mom.
Yes, you do get to decide. If you put somebody down in front of somebody and to be face-to-face assessed, you might weed out those who are gaming and conning the system. If you don't think that's happening, I suggest you don't live on this planet.
There were already face-to-face assessments, and let me tell you, when I was supporting...
How many? Like 1 in 10?
When I was supporting those people going through those tribunals, you had coal miners, right, who couldn't make a fist, they couldn't grip a toothbrush, and they were being told, how did you get to the assessment today? And then being denied because of that. If you think that's the kind of country that we want to go back to and that we want to live in, I'm sorry, the Labour Party leadership is completely out of sync with the Labour movement that it's meant to represent. It's never going to represent you. It's never going to represent Ben Habib, and nor should it.
OK, well, there we go. And perhaps you won't represent the country at this rate. James Mathewson, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. It really is to have your company. Former Labour spokesman there, James Mathewson. Got feisty. Now, coming up, a bombshell poll shows a whopping 81% of all British voters now support the deportation of serious foreign criminals such as paedophiles and rapists, even if that means they risk torture. More on this next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:25 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now it's time now for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to win £54,321, 54321 in tax-free moolah. It could all be yours. And here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life. Somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. Now, GB News can exclusively reveal that an overwhelming majority of the British public now back kicking out serious foreign criminals, even if they're at risk of torture in their home country, with 81% of the public supporting this move. And these are the results from different party voters on your screen. You can see now 89% of Conservative voters in 2024 back this motion, 85% of Reform UK voters, 80% of Lib Dem voters, 79% of Labour voters, and even 72% of Green voters support the deportation of paedophiles and rapists, even if their human rights are at risk in their home country. Well, let's now speak with the solicitor and the journalist Joshua Rosenberg. Joshua, it's always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. What does this say to you? I mean, this is an extreme... You might think, even a short while ago, this might seem like an extreme position, but the British public seems to be getting fed up of human rights lawyers, perhaps, and legislation standing in the way of what they think should be done to foreign criminals.
I think the British public is certainly concerned about foreign criminals, so is the government. The government is taking steps to deport foreign criminals after serving a shorter proportion of their sentence. But if you look at the question that was asked, the question was, would you support or oppose foreign criminals guilty of serious crimes like rape or paedophilia being deported, even if they might face violence or torture in their home country? Now, if you say that somebody may face violence, well, we all face violence. We walk down the street, somebody might bump into us, somebody might hit us, somebody might rob us, somebody might push us to the ground. So I don't think that the fact that somebody might face violence is a reason for not sending somebody who is a foreign criminal convicted of a serious offence to their own country. Obviously, torture is banned by the Human Rights Convention. If they can show they're going to be tortured, then they shouldn't be sent back.
But don't you think this also reflects something now of a state of exasperation amongst the British populace? We're seeing the rape gang scandal. We hear absurd cases practically every day. Today, it's a gentleman who can't be deported because he has a beard. Other times, it may be because people suddenly become LGBTQ. They perhaps convert to Christianity. They might join a prescribed terrorist organisation in Nigeria. We hear things all the time which people believe are ruses, of ways of gaming the system, of ways of avoiding deportation. And polls like this, actually, I think maybe, point to a huge discord, a disconnect, almost a revulsion with a legal system which doesn't seem to protect the British people, but seems to protect foreign criminals.
I think people are very concerned when they read these allegations, but if they look closely, they find that many of them are simply things that were said on behalf of these foreign criminals or people who are fighting against removal from the United Kingdom. It doesn't follow that those arguments are accepted by the courts. You have to read these cases and these stories in the press very carefully. But you're quite right. There is a great deal of concern about immigration, about asylum seekers, and about foreign criminals being kept in prison. The government is doing what it can. I was talking to a former director of public prosecutions, Lord MacDonald, earlier today for my own podcast, and he was concerned about the Refugee Convention. That's another thing which is preventing the UK and other countries from keeping refugees out of the country. So there are concerns, and I think that the government is aware of them. I think the government does have to do something, and I think that the broad message from this poll is that people are very worried about the way in which foreign criminals are in the country, and indeed migrants are arriving in the country who have no right to be here.
And Joshua Rosenberg, do you think that the system will get itself together in sufficient time, in sufficient shape, to satiate what clearly now is a great public anger, or the direction of travel seems to be that Britain will end up leaving the European Convention on Human Rights?
I think the government is facing challenges. It has brought legislation before Parliament, currently going through the House of Lords, which is designed to give stronger powers to the border force people who have to enforce the borders and so on. I don't think the answer to this problem is to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. That's certainly not government policy. It's not something that's going to happen in the next few years. But the government does have to do something if it's going to meet its targets and if it's going to satisfy this genuine public concern.
I think you're absolutely right. Thank you very much for joining us. It genuinely is a pleasure to have your esteemed company. Thank you, Joshua Rosenberg. Thank you. And lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including I'll be joined by a Labour Party MP to ask whether her boss, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will make another U-turn to appease his mass rebellion, this time over welfare cuts. That's next. But please, if you're travelling home from work or from school, first, of course, please stay safe. And then here is your traffic and your travel updates. Please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. This afternoon, both directions of the A489 are closed near Newtown, with diversions in place. Be cautious as you travel on the A5 northbound between the A5183 and the junction with the A4012 in Bedfordshire, where congestion is causing 10-minute delays. The M27 eastbound in Hampshire suffers lane closures between Junction 9 and Junction 10. In the city of Bristol, there's congestion on the M49 northbound between the M5 and the M4, with approximately 15-minute delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Great Western Railway are experiencing major disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Safe trip home, and now it's time for your headlines, and here is Sam Francis.
Very good evening, 5:30, the top story. More lethal than ever, that is how the Prime Minister has described the NATO alliance as he highlighted the UK's commitment to strengthening the nuclear deterrent.
It has kept this country safe for decades, but we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing.
Also tonight, Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed talks with Labour rebels over welfare concessions ahead of a vote. With 126 MPs now planning to block the bill, the Prime Minister insists reform will be tough but fair. The pound has surged above $1.37, hitting its highest point in almost 4 years. Markets are reacting to reports Donald Trump might replace the head of the US Federal Reserve. Here, a double-decker bus carrying college students has crashed into a river in Hampshire. 5 people, including the driver, are in hospital. 2 are in a serious condition. Get ready for a scorcher. Amber heat health alerts are in place as temperatures are set to soar to 34 degrees. Forecasters say expect humidity and pressure on health services. Jeff Bezos has been targeted again by protesters ahead of his star-studded wedding in Venice. A mannequin was set up near the canal showing the billionaire sat on a toilet. The couple's wedding has now moved location. The demonstrations continue. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 6.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight. Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, yeah, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England, into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west, and outbreaks of persistent rain over western hills. I think drier towards the east and northeast, but largely cloudy. Northern Ireland, likewise, a lot of cloud. Northwest England seeing the damp weather set in firmly during the morning. North Wales similar, but further south across Wales, brighter skies and mostly dry. 1 or 2 spots of rain possible for the southwest of England, but really it's a north-south split by the afternoon with sunny spells breaking through across southern parts of the UK, albeit with 1 or 2 light showers here and there. Variable amounts of cloud, but thicker cloud and increasingly heavy rain pushing into northwestern parts of the UK, particularly for higher parts of western Scotland. Temperatures here held back as a result, but a warm day in the south with temperatures reaching the mid or even high 20s in places. Then on Friday night, it's a warm night for many of us with a lot of cloud cover, continuing to rain in western Scotland. High pressure then builds in from the south during the weekend, bringing increasingly hot air to the south while it stays cooler further north.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. Time is 5:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is staring down a rebellion today after more than 120 Labour MPs are forcing the PM into an embarrassing U-turn, perhaps, to water down his welfare reforms. Now, this comes as a major new YouGov poll released today shows if a general election were to happen tomorrow, then Labour would win less seats, less than half the seats they won last year, with Reform UK being the largest party, which could mean Nigel Farage becomes the Prime Minister. I'm delighted to say, for the first time on GB News, I'm joined by the Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing. Rosie, a pleasure to have your company.
Thank you for having me.
Delight. So, all the talk is of this rebellion. There could be a U-turn. May I ask you, Rosie Writing, what's your position? How are you going to vote on this tomorrow? Next Tuesday, sorry.
We inherited a welfare system from the Conservatives, which wasn't working for anyone. It wasn't supporting the people that need it most. I think it's absolutely right that the government looks at welfare, and where we can support people into work, we do. And there's a package here, £1 billion package of supporting people into work, transforming job centres, and those one-to-one consultations. And that's what I want to see for my constituents. I want to see those who can work working, and I want to see those who can't properly protected, and that's what this bill is about, and that's why I'm supporting the government.
A lot of people watching this show would no doubt think that the cuts should go further. No, £5 billion of cuts is a sum of money, but the actual sickness bill by 2030 could be £100 billion per year. And the point is, the problem is, there is a huge rump of the Labour Party who don't want any kind of cuts. And one thing that we grapple with here on the show is the Labour Party actually the party of working people, or is it becoming now the party of the work-shy, people who don't want to go to work?
Well, the clue's in the name. We are absolutely the party of work. And that's why we've brought in the Employment Rights Bill, increased the minimum wage, so that people see work as a route out of poverty. But it is also right for those who can't work because of certain illnesses and disabilities are protected by welfare. But we need to make sure that PIP is properly targeted to protect those who need it most. But the Conservatives left us with a system where 1 in 8 young people are out of work. And I don't think that's OK. I don't think it's OK for my constituents and young people in Kettering. And I don't think it's OK for the country. We need to be encouraging young people into work. Work is absolutely a chance to grow your confidence, to grow skills. My first job did that for me. And for those who can work, I want them to be supported in those opportunities.
We had a Labour Party activist on the show a short while ago, and he was saying that this feels to him like the Labour Party chasing supporting the policies of Nigel Farage, going to the right economically, cutting down on those who are the neediest, Reformer leading in the polls. Is there any merit in that? This is the Labour Party trying to wear the clothes of Reform UK.
No, this is about reforming a system that isn't working for working people and people in this country. There's consensus in the party that the welfare system is broken, that it's not supporting those who need it most, and we aren't offering the proper support for people into work who can work. This is about doing what's best for the country, for the most vulnerable, and for our economy as well. We're not shying away from those difficult decisions, unlike Reform, who announce unfunded promises and whose some simply do not add up and would cause another Liz Truss crash.
I wonder if people in your constituency of Kettering, I know the area and I'm from sort of around that zone, if they think this will go far enough. Do people say to you, you see people around here who don't go to work, they're encouraged, they're paid to not work, they often get paid more to sit at home and not do anything, they get free social housing, and there's a feeling, particularly amongst working class communities, they're sick of the benefits culture, and actually it should be much more rigorous, much more means-tested, and sit people down and properly interview them to test, are you actually suffering from anxiety? Do you actually have a bad back? Or all the people out there, do you admit, that may be gaming the system?
We just had local elections, so I've had many conversations on the doorstep and in recent weeks in my inbox as well with constituents. And you're right, there's different views on different sides of what the welfare state should be in this country. But ultimately, what people want is good jobs as well, jobs that pay well, that offer training. They want to see young people, like I spoke about, they want to see young people to be able to take up those opportunities. And I want to see that in Kettering as well. But there is conversations I have, and rightly so, that there are people who, for whatever disability or illness, will never be able to work. And it's right that there's a welfare.
But there are some people taking the mickey on them. There are people taking the mickey and gaming the system, and should be more rigorous on weeding those people out.
Well, the Conservatives didn't support people who can work into work, and that is a concern. We shouldn't be the only major economy that hasn't reached employment hasn't recovered since the pandemic. Yeah, we shouldn't be in that situation, and that's what we inherited from the Conservatives. And I shouldn't see 1 in 8 young people in this country out of work, but they didn't offer them the proper support to be able to get into work. For those who are on PIP, they didn't offer them the right to try work because of fear of losing their benefits. And that's what this reform is about, and that's why I am supporting the government on these necessary changes to our welfare system.
There are 51 rebel MPs for the Labour Party on wafer-thin majorities. Many more people in their constituencies would lose their PIP benefits. It looks like there could be a sizable rebellion if that happens, if the Conservatives and Reform and the Liberal Democrats also go along with those rebels and the Labour Party is defeated. Does this shine a huge spotlight, a question mark, over Sir Keir Starmer's ability to lead the country?
There are conversations going on in Parliament at the moment. Those who have concerns about the bill are being given the space to raise those concerns. They're being heard. But what I'm confident about is the vote on Tuesday is a vote in welfare that will benefit the country. It'll benefit those who need it most and benefit those who want to get into work. And I'm supporting the Prime Minister in that.
Thank you very much for joining us, Rosie Writing, MP for Kettering, on the show. Please come back. Excellent guest. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. Lots of hot and sunny weather around the Mediterranean at the moment. Temperatures rising again in Spain. Quite a brisk breeze blowing at times over the Canaries. Some fine sunny weather here, a bit breezy too along the Portuguese coast, but a lot of sunshine across much of Iberia, through Italy and across the Greek islands as well. It'll turn a little cooler across the eastern Med as we head into the weekend, but temperatures continuing to rise in Spain and Portugal on Saturday and Sunday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools? What on earth is going on? Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You have a very nice accent, and I always thought but obviously I'm totally wrong. I've learned something already straight away.
I mean, we've interviewed together on countless occasions. I thought you would have picked up on my English accent.
Oh no, you're just changing it now. You're changing it a bit here.
Yeah, I'm just putting it on for you, mate.
Well, I'll tell you this, Chesney. I think it's amazing that we're talking about a tour next March for a man like you, and that shows you the extent to which you have to be organised to do these things. I thought like you're advertising this for this month or next month. Why the need to go so early?
Oh no, it's just to give people plenty of advance notice. You know, these days life comes up very fast, doesn't it? So I'm always touring, Eamon. I've actually got some headline shows coming up next week. I'm in Cardiff and and Southampton, but we've just announced this headline tour for next year. So I thought I'd get it out there and let people know in advance. You know.
And Chesney, just looking at your Instagram now, I mean, you've got a sense of humour, haven't you? Because you've been putting videos out there saying people think I'm a one-hit wonder, but let me tell you, there'll be a lot more songs than just the one that you're most famous for.
Yes. Contrary to popular belief, there are other songs. So looking forward, I've got a new album out right now, Ellie, and it's all been very, very well received. I'm so honoured and grateful for that. And so, yeah, I'll be performing some of this new album out on the road soon. You guys should come.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the US President Donald Trump was hailed the daddy at the NATO summit in wake of the attack on Iran. Let's take a wee listen.
I just want to get your attention. I really want to be all up in your head. Yeah. Is it you say daddy's home?
Oh, great fun there. That is Donald Trump. And we can now speak with the commentator in the studio, Nora Lee Knotson, who joins us in the studio. We're laughing along to that there. You pointed out a delicious irony. That song was by an artist who's not even a Republican.
No, that song's by Usher, and I believe it came out in 2009, and he came out very publicly on The View supporting Kamala Harris. So I'm sure he's going to love that one.
An extra piece of trolling. Look, Donald Trump has been on something of a whirlwind. He went to the G7, he left that early, he went to NATO, and he basically made NATO dance to his pipes in a way we haven't seen in all of NATO's history. Since 1949, he whipped them into action. And, you know, it has to be said, it's been quite an astonishing few weeks for Donald Trump.
it has been an astonishing few weeks. And if you think about all the isolationist talks, those basically went up in smoke with the nuclear capabilities of Iran, because now Europe realizes that the U.S. will stand by its allies, despite what people thought about those talks. And I think there's a lot of happiness that he wasn't going in for regime change, like when he came out and said, make Iran great again, because that was the fear, is boots on the ground. And so he's been brilliant with that. And what I'm hearing now is that part of the deal for him to go in on the strike with Benjamin Netanyahu is that there would be a ceasefire with Gaza, there would be 4 Arab nations to run Gaza, and Saudi and Syria would then become part of the Abraham Accords. And if he manages to do that with that strike, that's brilliant. Obviously, then the Nobel Peace Prize should be done and dusted.
Do you think he'd ever get a Nobel Peace Prize? He said himself, only liberals ever win it.
I think anything's possible right now. But I must say that daddy comment had everybody giggling whether they loved him or not, because it was very telling to hear what Root said when he just said daddy without thinking about it.
Yeah, and I do think that, Trump derangement syndrome has gone into overdrive. It will always be the case.
Yes.
But it has to be said, the America First attitude of Donald Trump has been just quite a sight to behold. You must be thrilled.
Well, I'm feeling very positive. I must say I was one who was quite concerned about getting involved with Iran, that would get dragged into a big mess. And now the mood is shifting. So it's great, and better to be a daddy than a king.
Super. So thank you very much for joining us on the show today. That is the commentator, Nora Lee Knotson. What a day it's been, and all eyes now, of course, on that huge Labour rebellion. Will there be yet another U-turn from the man they say has more flip-flops than a Marbella beach shop? Or will they stand firm? All of that remains to be seen. We're talking about Daddy's Home next. Jubes is home. Jubes & Co. is up next. The queen of primetime debate joins us now. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. Great show. I like that quote. Is it better to be a daddy than a king? I don't know. What do you all make to that? So we've got a lot coming up on the programme tonight. Is this country in a dark place? You've got to ask yourself and raise eyebrows when that sentence is coming from the Albanian Prime Minister. I mean, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but come on now. But has he got a point or not? Of course, I want to speak about regime change that has been called for in the Labour Party. And I also want to ask you about PIP. Has it just got all out of control? I'll see you in a sec.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today, and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight. Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west, and outbreaks